everybody, welcome to That's Football. The Premier League is almost back and I, for one, cannot wait. I cannot wait for it. But before it comes back, we're going to discuss who is going to get top four this season, because the top four race is absolutely intriguing. As you can see with the league table on my left, Magic, there are a lot of contenders here. In fact, when you look at it, Aston Villa in fifth have a bit of a gap at the moment, but if Villa start dropping points, could Chelsea, West Ham, Brighton, Newcastle, Man United, Tottenham, Aston Villa all in a top four race? Who do you think is going to get it? Get in the comments below. I want to see what you're going for, but I'm going to tell you what I'm going for right here, right now. I think the top four race is incredibly competitive this season. I think it was competitive last season, but I felt that Newcastle and Manchester United got third and fourth because Chelsea and Liverpool were dreadful, and maybe Aston Villa just came a little bit too late. Brighton didn't have the experience. Spurs weren't there. There's more teams in it this year. I also think that the stakes are a lot higher. There is the Champions League, of course, but the Champions League is about to evolve. I don't like the new Champions League system, but it's more games, it's more money, it's more status. And everybody's going to want to be in that from year one and then stay in it. I think Man City are in it. I think Liverpool are in it. I think Arsenal are in it. I mean, already they are, They're 6 points ahead of Manchester United. All right, they're only a couple of points ahead of Villa, but I think we know we're going to start that gap's going to only get bigger. I might be wrong, but I think Man City, Liverpool and Arsenal are absolutely nailed on. Now, before I say who I think is going to get fourth in the candidates, there will be people out there saying, well, it could be the top five this year, Mark. It could be the top five. It could be the top five. As I understand it, UEFA in the new Champions League system will give an extra spot to the two leagues in Europe with the best coefficient score. And I think 4 out of the last 5 years, the Premier League would be one of those. But there is a warning. Newcastle are not doing very well in the Champions League. Manchester United are not doing very well in the Champions League. We could still get a 5th spot putting us into the Champions League, but it's not definite. And I certainly don't think you can relax and chill and go, I'll let everyone else battle for 4th, we'll get 5th. And also, whoever's battling for 4th, one of them's going to miss out into the 5th place anyway, so you've got to go for 4th. Who's going to get it? Look, at the moment, Spurs are there. I almost thought of running a title, no chance Spurs get top 4, but it's too vindictive and it's too individualistic. We're talking about a lot of other clubs here. But we'll start with Spurs because they are in 4th place at the moment. Do I think Spurs get top 4? I think if they get top 4, build a statue for Ange. Cobber. It's a podcast thing. We do it on the podcast. Actually, check out the podcast. Brilliant new episode. Goldbridge Saves Football. Links in the video description. But yeah, I think if Spurs get top 4, it's almost the downside of starting off so well. Were they in a title race? No. Oh, top 4 will do. But actually, I think at the start of the season, not just Spurs fans, I would say as a non-Spurs fan, 4th place for Spurs would be incredible from where they've come from. So I still would say that Spurs in top 4 has to be their aim. I think they definitely got to go for it. They've got the stadia. They're playing the good football. But I think it would be a massive first season for Spurs to do it. I don't think they do it. The reason I don't think they do it is because what's about to happen at Christmas. There's 6, 7, 8 games before the January transfer window opens. There's 6, 7, 8 games before they get the likes of Maddison and Van der Ven back. They may well get other injuries. The thing about injury crises, and Chelsea do it, Newcastle do it, Spurs do it, and certainly my club United do it. When we get everybody back, but do you get everybody back? You wait 2 months to get everyone back, and in that 2 months you pick up more injuries. So I feel that Spurs just don't have the squad, which is interesting because they don't have European football. So it shows you how thin that squad is beyond their better players and the drop-off there. They've got to grind. We saw against Wolves before the break. They've got to grind those losses into wins. And if they do that, Spurs' aim is to get to January and still be in a top 4 race. But I tell you what, with 20 points to play for, that could shift around very quickly for Spurs. Fortunately, they've got a 5-point lead on Manchester United already. So they should be there or thereabouts in January, but they've got to fight for that right, and then they've got to do good business in January. I don't think they get top 4. Aston Villa, well, look, I think with Aston Villa, incredible. I would say that Emery is the 3rd best manager in the league at the moment, based on what he's done, what his CV is, but the incredible consistency of Aston Villa since he's gone into that club has been remarkable, and they deserve their place. But the problem with Aston Villa is that they do have European football. And because they have European football, that's Thursday, Sunday, with a squad which I think becomes fatigued at some point. They have the Spurs problem at some point where they pick 2 or 3 big injuries up, and have they got the depth, especially in the attack? I think Villa need to spend in January as well. And I'm assuming Spurs and Villa spend in January. What if they don't? So I can't put Villa in the top 4 because I just don't think that they'll have the legs to run the race, much the same as Spurs. That brings me to Manchester United, who I also think struggle in this top 4 race. I could put them in that place because they've got the experience of doing it last year. I could put them in that place because when everybody's fit, they've got some very, very good players. But we're in an injury crisis as well. We're also playing in Europe. We're also probably the worst team in the top 8 when it comes to style of play at the moment and consistency. So there's a lot to say, no, Man United won't get 4th place. But then there's a lot of me that says, yes, we've done it before. We've had a lot of injuries. If we can start to get anywhere near our best back 5 out and start getting clean sheets, we'll start grinding those results out, which is so important. And it's about staying in the race. And there's the January transfer window. And there's this prospective deal with Sir Jim Radcliffe, who will surely want to do something in January. So I wouldn't count Manchester United out, but I was on the United stand yesterday, and over 60% of our audience said we won't get top 4. Because right here, right now, you'd never predict it. But you've got to put Man United in there because somehow, after a terrible start to the season, we are in 6th place. So it stands to reason, if we can improve, we can challenge for top 4. But I don't necessarily think that Manchester United will get it. Brighton, I think, struggle with the same problem of Aston Villa and Manchester United, the European football, but also they're decimated. I know not everybody necessarily knows who's in a Brighton squad, but if you check their injuries, it is unbelievable. And De Zerbi does rotate a little bit too much for me. I feel that Brighton's priority may be the Europa League, maybe winning the Europa League rather than getting top 4. But it's difficult for a club like Brighton that's not used to being in Europe or being in the top 4, prioritising top 4 or the Europa League when you've got no idea what it's like to try and juggle both. And I think that might be Brighton's downfall, as well as they've been a little bit unfortunate lately, not getting wins where they should have done. So I feel that with Brighton, it's probably a little bit too much for them. West Ham, forget it. I don't think they've got the quality of everybody else above them, and also they're playing in Europe as well. And then Chelsea, who still haven't got through their difficult run of fixtures, and are still 9 points off, 10 points off 4th place. I think that's a hell of a lot to do. And they still have got some difficult ties to come before Christmas. So I feel for Chelsea, the catch-up, they're capable. If Chelsea were in Man United's position, another 5 points, I'd say, watch out. But I think it's too much to do in a competitive league. And that's the downfall when you're trying to play catch-up. Because there's no easy games. Look, there's 9 teams ahead of them. They're all fighting for something. So every time you play them, it's a difficult game. So how do you close the gap? It's very difficult for Chelsea to close the gap. So people are going to say, well, who's going to get top 4, Mark? You've been through everybody. Who's going to get top 4? Well, I'm going to give a name, but I've almost given a name for a reason why everybody else shouldn't do it. I'm ridiculously nervous doing this. I'm interested to check your comments. Get your top 4 in. I'm still saying Man City win the league. I'm still going to go Liverpool 2nd, Arsenal 3rd, but my 4th place team is going to be Manchester United. No, and that's not even biased. I just cannot. The reason I've gone with Man United is red tinted glasses. It is biased because I've missed Newcastle out. I've just missed Newcastle out. Oh my God, they don't like me anyway. I don't know why. I forgot about Newcastle. Right, Newcastle. Yeah, well, I don't think they're going to... I think they've got a good chat. You know what? I actually think Man United or Newcastle for 4th place. I'm going to go Man United. I've forgotten about Newcastle, but they've got the experience. They've got the January transfer window where if they can spend, they will. And I think they're about to drop out the Champions League, which might make them prioritise the Premier League top 4 race. Newcastle are very much like United. It just depends whether they can kick into gear. They've got an amazing home form. They've had a lot of injuries. Actually, you know what? I'd keep an eye on Newcastle. I think it'll be Man United or Newcastle for 4th place, which is a little bit boring because they did it last year. But I think it will come down to squad depth and experience. And that's why I've got to go with Man United and Newcastle. So I'm going to go Man United. But if I had to pick a second choice for top 4, it'd be Newcastle. So you can as well. What's your top 4? And if you're stuck on 4th, I'll let you do slash. So you can go 1, 2, 3, and then fourth, one team slash another. So I'm going to go Man United or Newcastle. New rules. Man United or Newcastle for top four, for fourth place for me. Get your comments below. Let me know what you think. Smash a like on the video. And don't forget tomorrow, win, lose or draw with me and Ben Foster for the weekend fixtures. Bring it on. Take care. Check out the podcast. I'll speak to you all soon.